Good morning, class. I thought I'd give a brief lecture video over Modular 2, which really covers, if it was a normal semester, it would be like weeks 3 through 5, roughly, um, 3 through 6 possibly. But we're looking at rhetorical analysis. So that's going to be Essay 2. There's some information already on Blackboard. I've uploaded some additional rhetorical analysis and rhetorical appeals that we're going to look at. The topics for SA2 are already up. Um, there's a model example from a previous student from another class that you can kind of look at, as you are drafting and finalizing your particular essay. We would probably look at a video that talks a little bit more in depth, real quick, about rhetorical analysis. We may do that sort of toward the end, but I just wanted to go through and kind of show you um, several students, for whatever reason, didn't submit the first essay. I've graded most of them. I think I only have 3 left. Remember, as the syllabus states, the nature of this course, because it's only 8 weeks long and we're basically on week 3 now, we just don't have time to slow down. I don't have time to chase you down for late work. If assignments are not turned in by the deadline, just know that you're going to get a 0. And with each 0, you accumulate, it drops you at least 20 points. So that's like 2 letter grades. So, I mean, I've had some folks that just didn't even take the syllabus quiz and they already have 2 zeros. Well, guess what? Their grade is at a 0 because they don't have anything else there to counterbalance that. But usually, when you have a good bit of grades, if you made 3 zeros and then you already had some stuff graded, chances are you would be at a 40 or lower. So that's how the zeros work. They hurt the grade. They will fail you if you don't turn stuff in on time. And again, I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to chase you down. I'm not going to say, hey, turn it in late. By policy, I don't take late work. Just don't have time. I got 5 other classes that are full time, 15 weeks, and they got, heavy stuff coming up, research paper, that type stuff. Just don't have time to be, chasing down grown adults because they can't follow instructions and turn stuff in on time. So I'm not going to do it. So don't ask, hey, could I take, can I turn it in to be late and all this stuff? It's just going to be a no, right? The other thing is, if you haven't did the first 2 assignments, I went ahead and no-showed you. So, because I mean, you haven't done any work basically in the last 2 weeks. So you're not going to have access to this particular class probably after the day after the no-show. So just sort of keep that in mind. I should have the other 3 SA1s graded by the end of the week, if not sooner. So please check that. I do provide feedback that you can download and read to help you possibly for SA2, SA3, so on and so forth. Don't forget, I did send out, and I can show you some of this stuff here momentarily, to your email account, but also on the announcements. I gave you some information about quiz 1 and quiz 2 and quiz 3 coming up. Some have hyperlinks, some have, you can find information in your e-text under the grammar section as well if you want additional information. There's hyperlinks throughout some of these modulars that take you to particular areas of a textbook that will give you information about the grammar concepts that we're covering over the next few weeks and the stuff that you need to avoid in your essays, because the essay grades are the ones that are worth the most. Yes, quiz grades count, but you can pass, make 100 in every quiz that we have here and still wind up failing the course if you don't do well on the 4 essays. So keep that in mind. Be careful about working too far ahead. Now, I will sort of open up week modular 3 stuff as we get closer to when modular 3 needs to be open. But I mean, if you work ahead and you screw up on an assignment, then you're kind of screwed there because you've already turned something in and already put a grade on it. So if you're one that works ahead, make sure that you know exactly what you're doing. You read the instructions of everything that's supposed to be due, because otherwise you're going to have to live with that grade once I grade it. I did send out some extra credit opportunities. Um, extra credit 1, 2, and 3. I think that's in your announcements and also went to your email. Pretty much that's going to be the only extra credit we have this semester is those 3. Now, as time gets closer or as we move closer to the middle of April, I will drop one of your lowest quiz grades. Only a quiz grade though, it can only be one, won't be an essay, it has to be a quiz grade. But you need to let me know which one you want me to drop. Otherwise, I'm just going to drop one randomly. And I usually try to go for the lowest one, but sometimes I just pick the one that's closer to me that I can drop on the computer, and I would just drop it. Now, um, we've only had the syllabus quiz. Some of y'all might have taken the quiz too, but I mean, if you already know a quiz that you want me to drop, you can go ahead and email me and let me know that now. But once I drop that one quiz, if you don't do so good on quiz 5 down the road, I can't go back and, switch. So make sure whatever quiz you decide that you want me to drop is the one you exactly want me to drop. Because once I drop one, that's it. I'm not going to drop anything else. All right, let me flip over and get on our Blackboard page here, and we will go from there. Okay, you should be able to see we're in modular 2. As you can tell, once we finish with the modular, I'm going to close it up just so it doesn't crowd up the page. Again, check your announcements. As you can tell here, this is the extra credit chance. I clicked on it. You follow the instructions, what you need to do. I will give you +5, right? If you do the pretest, +5 on SA1, +5 on SA2, +5 on SA3. If you do the student evaluation, post-test, and the pretest. If there is something that you didn't turn in, let's say you did +5 for the pretest, but you never turned in an SA1, I will put those +5 points somewhere else then. It may be SA2 if you turn that in, or it may be a quiz. You will get the points. Primarily, I want it put on the essay since the essays are weighted more. But if you don't turn your essays in, I have to put them somewhere else. So obviously, you're not going to see a big jump in the grade if I put it on a quiz, unless that's the only thing you got going on is a couple quiz grades. You will see most of the percentages and stuff increase, especially if you're borderline. Like if you're a borderline between a B and an A, or C and a B, or a D and a C, you'll see it then. If your grade is sort of, in the middle, if it's a 74 and you did some extra credit, it may only, pull your overall grade up 1 or 2 points. So, I mean, it's better than nothing. It's good to have some cushion when you're dealing with your particular grade at hand, especially since we have, at this point, we only have an 8-week course. This is week 3. That basically means we have about 5 weeks left if you count spring break into that. So make sure if you want extra credit, you don't have to do it. It's optional. But this is where you're going to find your extra credit chances. And like I said, this is pretty much, it's going to be it because we're not going to have time as we get, closer to the first week of April to have a lot of additional extra credit chances. So you will have at least these 3. And like I said earlier, I will drop one of your lowest quiz grades. So you can kind of count that maybe as an extra credit 4, but that's all we're going to have. And I put it here, you must be completed before spring break. Our spring break starts April 6th. So I need to have all these extra credit assignments due by April 6th if you're planning on doing them. If you're not planning on doing them, then, I mean, obviously, you don't have to have them in by April 6th. The other thing is, this is what I was talking about. There's some information. There's a study guide here you can download that deals with quiz 2. The quiz 3 stuff, which that's not going to be due until April 2nd. You have a little bit of time, but I do give you hyperlinks that usually have some questions or examples, stuff that you can kind of interact with and get the answers to. This particular study guide won't have any answers to it, but if you do it and you want to send me those answers via, Microsoft Word attachment to my email and you want your answers checked or you want me to give you the correct answers, I can do that. But I need to see that you're actually attempting this stuff instead of me just giving you the answers and you say, oh, I got this stuff. I just look at it. And then when the quiz comes up, you don't know what the hell you're doing because you made a 15 on it or something. So just be wary of that. Essay quiz 2 is due on the 19th, which is later this week. It's this Thursday by 11:59. Quiz 3 is due on April 2nd, I believe by 11:59. Essay 2 is going to be due Thursday, March 22nd or 26th by 11:59. And this one needs to be a little bit different when we look at the assignment instructions. This needs to be, I think I have 3 to 4 pages. I think actually on the assignment is 4 to 5. So we want to go by the assignment page. 4 to 5, not 3 to 4. And I think I need to change this, which I will. So folks can get that. Because I'm pretty sure I put 4 to 5. So we're upping the paper length. So just make sure that you follow the instructions. You need to find 3 scholarly or credible sources with this particular essay as well. So let's go back to look. Modular 2. Now, if you're still wondering where you're going to find your textbook and stuff, textbook and that information is right here, right? You click on it, the course textbook, you click down, and you click on this. This is your course textbook. This is the MLA 9 handbook. This is the assignment checklist and due dates that you can always find. A lot of this stuff is also in your syllabus. We do have tutor.com. If you want to have a tutor look at your paper, you just click on that, go through the instructions and upload your paper, tell them what you're trying to do and what you need to do. Also, you can send me drafts of your papers, especially your essays, if you can give them to me, a couple days before they're actually due, so I can give you some feedback, so you can use that feedback to revise and improve the final draft grade. There's going to be some information here, library help, librarian live chat. That's going to be helpful when we get into the research paper, which is really essay 4. But you may need to talk to the librarian and use some of the librarian chat now as it deals with this rhetorical analysis, because again, you need to find 3 scholarly sources depending on your topic for this rhetorical analysis. So that could be, 2 books and 1 journal. It could be 2 journal articles and 1 book. It can be a book, a website, and a journal article, but they must be scholarly in nature, right? Anything online, .gov, .org, .edu, it's fair game. You want to be careful about some of the .com sites because those are not always accurate. I mean, I know there's a lot of news sites that are .com. Some of those are good that you can use. But, stuff like wikipedia.com, grokpedia.com, all that stuff you can't use really because they're not academic in nature. Now, with some of them, if the article is well written, you can piggyback off some of their research, look at the reference page that they provide, because a lot of times they will link you up to, scholarly books, scholarly journal articles, and websites that way. But you can't just copy and paste and quote stuff from Wikipedia, because every day there's somebody that goes on there and edits that whatever page you're looking at, and we can't guarantee if that person is really an expert, right? It could be a 4-year-old or it could be a 94-year-old. If they're able to read and get up and actually type and upload stuff, then anybody day or night can go to Wikipedia or Grokpedia or any of these pedias and put a bunch of stuff up there that might not be true. All right, so going to Modular 2. If you click, you will find additional e-text and handouts here. This is stuff that you want to sort of take your time to look at. This talks a little bit more about rhetorical analysis, rhetorical devices, fallacies. We get into some more of the grammar, part 1, part 2, with verbs, nouns, articles. a lot of this stuff too you can find in your e-text. If I have page numbers, that means you can find this stuff in your e-text. If you, unless you want to read it, online, I would probably say try the online because I do have it hyperlinked. But if you need additional information, then go back to these e-textbook pages to sort of read more. Um, this is where quiz 2 is at. Remember, you're going to need now to have respondents for your proctors, for your proctor quizzes for SA3, which we'll talk about here in another week. It's going to be a 60-minute timed essay. You're going to need to have respondents. You can find respondents if you go back up to here where it says Welcome Stingray. You click on that and follow it down. There's information here about respondents. You want to click on the arrow and you want to read and watch some of these videos because you want to download the correct Respondus lockdown browser app to the device that you're using. Meaning if you're using a Chromebook, you need to read the information and follow what it says here about Chromebook. If you're using Windows, same thing for Windows. For Mac, same for Mac. You can't mix and match. Meaning you can't have a Chromebook and download the Respondus for Mac and expect it to work or vice versa. You have to download it to the particular device that you're using. I will tell you, laptops and desktops are probably the best um, devices to use. Smartphones or any type of cell phone, it's not going to work. I wouldn't even try to download it because you're not going to be able to take the test using a smartphone or any type of cell phone with Respondus. Same thing with an iPad. It won't work with an iPad. So you're going to need to get a laptop or a desktop. Again, if you don't have some of that equipment, because it's going to require you to have obviously a working updated computer, a stable working internet connection, and a working webcam and a working web mic that needs to be turned on at all times during that particular quiz exam or the time writing that's coming up. If you don't have that material, then you need to go to your closest Coastal Pines Technical College library and use the equipment we have in the library or, the testing center. You still have to download. They already have, I think, the respondents there. So instead of being at home doing it, you'd have to come to the college to do it. You'd still be in an environment where it's going to ask that you take your camera, move it around, and make sure you don't have any notes or anything that you're going to be cheating on or anything like that. They can flag you to be cheating. Because once they flag you, that stuff is recorded because a proctor is watching you. Sometimes I'm able, if I have time, if I'm not teaching, sometimes I will pop in. You won't know that I'm there, but sometimes I will pop in to see what's going on live. I do get the recordings after you are finished. If there's a lot of flags, they would just shut your test down and send me the recording, which, when I look at it, if there is obvious, camera's not going to lie. The mic won't lie. If you're talking to people, getting answers, whatever the case may be, we've had that happen before where people would hide underneath a table and, use a mirror and all this other crap and get busted. Then you're automatically going to get a 0 on that particular, quiz or exam or whatever the case may be. So it's not worth it because, again, zeros are going to hurt your grade and hurt your grade fast, especially in a fast-paced course. So make sure that you read this stuff about respondents because from here on out, you're going to need it for all the quizzes that we do and for that SA3 time writing that we're going to talk about probably next week or so. So make sure you read this stuff, follow the instructions, so you're downloading the right one because, again, I don't have control over the test or over the program. Only thing I can do is upload and download the test, that type deal, and grade it. So if it asks you, because a lot of students say, well, it's asking for a password. Do you know the password? No, I don't know the password because I didn't create a password. Respondus program will create its own password. The problem with that is if you did everything right on your end, because the password is already built in, it will bypass that and take you right to the quiz or the exam or whatever you need to do. It won't even ask you for a password. That's how you know you did everything right on your end. If it does prompt the password, and you did something wrong on your end, like you downloaded or mix matched the different programs. You're going to have to use, the Respondus IT tech. You're going to have to contact them if there's any problems with your actual lockdown browser, because I'm not IT. I'm not where you are at as it relates to your device. I don't know what your device is showing or saying or whatever the case may be. So again, contacting me because you're having computer problems or a lockdown browser problem or a password problem, especially, Blackboard password problems, those are not my problems. Those are your problems. So you're going to need to kind of resolve those, because each one of those lockdown browsers that you take, you only have 1 hour to finish. So whatever time you take it, or when you take it, you only have 1 hour. I can't pause the time. I can't reset the time. I can't restart it. You got 1 hour to finish. So if you're, going to the bathroom or going to eat or fumbling around, your time is ticking. And if there's nothing saved or nothing submitted, once it hits that 1 hour mark, whatever's sent, that's when I'm going to grade. And if there's nothing there, it's automatically going to give you a 0. So kind of keep that in mind as we move ahead here. All right. So quiz 2, again, you click on that. Again, it's going to prompt you, do you have Respondus? If you don't, you need to go ahead and get that. I would say get it this week, obviously, because the 19th will be here before you know it. There's information here about rhetorical analysis and rhetorical appeals. If you click on this, it gives you a couple of different handouts. You might want to look at some of this stuff. Some of it's going to be covered in the video that we're going to look at. Some folks are audio and visual, so that's why I'm going to play the video. The video is a little bit lengthy, but I think it works. You can also read about logos, ethos, and pathos that you're going to need to use throughout your 4 to 5 page essay. This gives you sort of a smaller example. Your paper can't be this short, obviously, because you're going to be using 3 additional sources, but this kind of gives you a snippet, how it looks. Make sure that you're following the MLA 9 essay format. You're going to be losing a lot of easy points if you don't have a header, right? If you don't have your last name and page number in top right-hand corner of every page. If you don't have a proper essay title that is creative in the center of the first page, with certain words capitalized. Don't need to use boldface, right? But there are certain words that need to be capitalized in your title. You're going to be losing points there. You need to make sure that you indent paragraphs. You're going to need to make sure that you double space everything. Some of y'all are not double spacing your paragraphs, so you're going to be losing points. Make sure that you spell out contractions in formal papers. Otherwise, you're losing points there. Make sure that you're not using second person pronouns, you and your, or you're going to be losing points there. We need to use first or third person pronouns. So kind of keep that in mind as we move ahead. Make sure that you read the assignment directions. If it says it needs to be 3 to 4 pages, then it needs to be 3 to 4 pages, not 1 or 2. If it says it needs to be 4 to 5 pages, then it needs to be 4 to 5 pages, not 9 or 2. So make sure that because you're losing points on basic format stuff and for just not following instructions correctly. You can lose up to a letter grade, 10 points or more. Make sure that you use spell check and grammar check on your Microsoft Word or Grammarly or whatever that you're using. Because a lot of these comma errors and a lot of these spelling errors, you could easily get your points back just by proofreading and editing your paper before you have to submit it in. Because we don't really have a lot of time to do the peer reviews like we would in 15 weeks. Unless you're sending me a draft or going to Smart Thinking or having somebody else to read your paper that knows English really well, whatever you turn in the Dropbox, that's your final draft. So if you're not doing any proofreading or editing to turn it in, you're basically turning me in the rough draft because you didn't do anything to it. So you can't expect that your grade is going to be that great if you didn't go behind yourself and do any kind of revisions. So make sure that you're doing that stuff so you're not losing easy points. There's some fallacies that you might want to pay attention to and look at. as it relates to rhetorical analysis and their arguments, this is just, some of many as it relates to, emotional fallacies, character fallacies, logical fallacies. There's more out there, of course. You can go to Google and type in more. But these are things that you can kind of zero in on as it relates to some of your paragraphs when it comes to the ethos, pathos, and logos of your paper as well. Don't feel like you need to use every single one of these, but you probably want to pick out some that will kind of fit to those particular paragraphs. Because again, if you're looking at trying to use ethos, logos, and pathos for whatever type of medium that you're going to use, and again, we're looking at the some of the topics here, then you want to understand that you're going to have your introduction paragraph, right? You're going to have some hook in the background. It's going to lead up to your thesis statement, which again, the thesis statement needs to be the very last complete sentence of your introduction paragraph. And then we get into the body paragraphs, right? Each one of your body paragraphs needs to have a topic sentence, which is usually the first sentence of the body paragraph. It tells what that particular body paragraph is going to be about. Usually one topic per body paragraph is the rule. You don't want to have a topic sentence that has 4 or 5 different topics in it. It's just going to make that body paragraph really, really confusing and lengthy. You need to make sure that you do have examples throughout. And you devote your body paragraphs, like 1 or 2 body paragraphs could be strictly on ethos. 1 or 2 body paragraphs could be strictly on pathos. 1 or 2 body paragraphs can be strictly on logos. You're going to have to make this paper a little bit longer. So you're going to have to write additional paragraphs because 4 to 5 pages is not, you can't just write a 5-paragraph essay adequately, effectively with everything that you need to do with this rhetorical analysis by writing just a 5-paragraph essay. That worked fairly well with essay 1, which is what it was intended to do. This particular paper, you may need, 8+ paragraphs. You may need 10 paragraphs to get 4 to 5 pages. So kind of keep that in mind. This is where you can find the essay 2 student example. You want to go through that to use it as sort of a reference. It's nearly 6 pages, which is about the length that yours needs to be. This student did make a 90 or higher on it, so it's a really good paper to look at. They didn't use as many sources on this one like I wanted y'all to use, and so that's the only sort of drawback from this is that they only use the one source when everybody else now needs to use at least 3. But the information there, the way they organize the paper, the way the body paragraphs look, the thesis statement, the topic sentences, how they quoted when it dealt with a particular, YouTube video or film, it shows how to do that. So it's still good information to look at when it comes to, when you're starting to draft yours. The Dropbox is right here, just like any other Dropbox that we had as it relates to your essays. You upload it as a Microsoft Word file. If you upload it as a PDF file, I can't really put any feedback on the file because it's hard to do. So the only thing I can do with a PDF file is basically read it and give it a grade and move on. So if you don't care so much about the feedback, most people do because they like the feedback because it helps them improve from one essay to the next, then, I would upload it as a Microsoft Word file so I can put the feedback actually on the paper. So let's look at the actual assignment sheet, and then we kind of finish off with that video, and then I will let you sort of, start tackling some of this as we move along. Like I said, you do have a little bit of time to start brainstorming and to start thinking, but really, I mean, you got all of this week up to next Thursday to do a draft and then finalize that draft. So you don't have a lot of time, especially since you're going to have to go out and find at least 3 credible sources, right? So let's look at some of the topics here. And this kind of gives you the rundown, right? So again, MLA 9, same essay format as essay 1. And that's pretty much how most of the essay formats are going to be. Essay 3 is going to be a little bit different just because you got to use the text box that they provide in the program for that particular timed essay. This needs to be 4 to 5 pages or 1,000 to 1,250 words, whatever comes first, right? If you get 1,000 words in your page 3, but you covered everything you needed to cover and said everything you need to say, then you can stop. If you get to 1,000 words at the end of page 3 and you didn't cover everything and you didn't say everything you need to say, and if stopping there would just make your paper awkward or lose points, then you need to move on to page 4 and possibly get closer to the 1,250 word count, right? Use common sense about when you think you need to stop. If it seems like it's unfinished, then probably it is, and you need to keep going, right? I will say this, if you get over 5 pages, right? If you're starting to get page 6, 7, 8, you probably need to go back and kind of chop some stuff out. You need to condense. You need to see where you can cut some stuff. Because again, we're not looking to write really anything beyond 5 pages here. We need it, between 4 and 5. You don't need anything 2. I can tell you if it's less, if it's really less than 4, it's probably not going to do so well. A minimum of 3 credible sources. Again, you can find sources at your public library. You can find sources if you're a dual enrollment student in your high school library. If you are, come to a Coastal Pines brick and mortar college, you can use the college library. But you need to find 3 credible sources. And a library is a good place to find those. You don't want to just get every source off the internet. So I would try to vary it up. 1 book, 1 journal article, 1 website, because when I do it this way, or if you do it this way, this paper is going to set you up in some ways as a preview to the research paper to come later in April, where you're going to have to use 6 scholarly sources, and we're just doubling up the 2 with 2 books, 2 journal articles, and 2 websites. So the assignment overview. In this essay, you will examine how a text works, not whether you agree with it. Your goal is to analyze the rhetorical choices an author makes and explain how these choices shape the message and influence the intended audience. So this is not a summary. It's not a book report. This is not your opinion on the issue. This analysis examines how persuasion occurs. Your task. So here's your task. Choose a text that presents a clear argument or message. Then write an essay in 4 to 5 pages using those 3 credible sources as well, analyzing the rhetorical strategies the author uses to achieve their purpose. You must support your analysis with at least 3 credible sources, which may include, and I guess right here a list, right? Scholarly articles, reputable news outlets, books or academic chapters, interviews or expert commentary, credible websites or organizational reports. At least 1 source should be about the text, author, or context. And at least 1 should help you understand the rhetorical strategies being used. So acceptable text types. These are the things that you can analyze, right? The logos, the ethos, pathos for this rhetorical analysis. The kairos, looking at some of those fallacies as well. You may analyze a speech, right? A TED Talk, an opinion article or editorial, public service announcement, an advertisement, a documentary segment, a visual argument, poster, campaign ad, infographic. If you're unsure whether your text qualifies, you need to email me before you get started with the draft. Don't email me a day before it's due. If you're unsure after watching this video, you need to email me then, right? Because time is a ticking. So required elements. Introduction. Your introduction should introduce the text and its author. Briefly summarize the main arguments, 2 to 3 sentences only. Identify the audience, purpose, and context. End with a clear thesis that names the rhetorical strategies you will analyze. Body paragraphs. This is where you're going to have multiple body paragraphs. You're going to have more than 3. You're probably going to need to have at least 5 or 6 body paragraphs at most, depending on your topic. Each body paragraph should focus on one rhetorical strategy, such as ethos, credibility, authority, trust, pathos, emotion, values, identity, logos, logic, evidence, reasoning, tone and diction, imagery or figurative language. A lot of this stuff you've probably known from other English courses, especially if you studied novels, short stories, poems, literature, that type stuff. Structure and organization, use of examples, anecdotes, and data. For each strategy, identify the topic, provide a specific example from the text, explain how it affects the audience, connect it to the author's purpose, support your analysis with at least one credible source when appropriate. Your conclusion. Your conclusion should summarize your main points, evaluate the overall effectiveness of the rhetorical choices, and explain why understanding this rhetoric matters. So what I'm going to have to do, and I just realized I didn't do this from earlier, I need to upload how to cite stuff using MLA 9, parenthetical citation, and works cited page information. So that will be coming up soon. So you will get that. I will have a link for it. What your essay should not do. Do not argue whether the author is right or wrong. Do not summarize the entire text, right? There's a difference between summary and analysis. If you have trouble with that, you may want to look up YouTube videos, the difference between summary and analysis, or Google it and see what other articles you can find. Do not focus on your personal opinion. Do not analyze the topic itself, only the rhetoric. So tips for success. Use short, relevant quotes from the text. Integrate your sources smoothly with signal phrases. Avoid long block quotes. Stay objective and analytical. Revise for clarity, flow, and persuasion. Make sure your works cited page includes at least 3 credible sources. When you have a works cited page, your works cited page needs to start on a fresh page. So if you end on page 5, the works cited page needs to start on page 6. Submission guidelines. Submit proper MLA 9 format. Include a creative, relevant title. Attach a works cited page. Proofread carefully for grammar and clarity. Upload your essay to the designated platform by the due date. So let me go real quick because that was the other thing I needed to do. This was what I was going to show you. I will put this up here. This shows you how to quote. There's a lot of different works citing generators that you can use to make sure that you put your stuff in MLA 9. If you need help with that, I can show you where to find those, or you can email me to make sure you're doing the works cited page correctly. But let me go ahead and put this up because you're going to need to know how to do it. That way you will have this, and you will know how, because you're going to need to use this for pretty much, when we talk about the research paper, you're going to need to know how to quote, paraphrase, cite, all that stuff for that particular research paper coming up. So that's what and that's going to be here. So you should be able to see this. And it's right there. Just click on it and it'll take you basically to this. If you have any questions, because I know our time is running a little low here, I didn't want to make this too terribly long, but read through this. It kind of shows you when I was talking about parenthetical citation. Sometimes you will also hear it as in-text citation. It shows how to do that. It doesn't really talk about the works cited page so much, but again, if you go to like Google and type in works cited generator for MLA 9, you will find a whole bunch of websites. If you follow the information, it will sort of go through there. I probably will give you some information about the works cited page as well as some signal phrases that you can kind of use to integrate your quotes. Probably what I would do with that, I may send that as an announcement / email in the coming days. So be on the outlook for that, or I may try to actually put it up if possible. So what we're going to turn to now is look at this video. And we can look at this video real quick here momentarily. And this could be kind of helpful as it relates to talking a little bit more about the rhetorical analysis. So let me move this back over. And this is sort of what we're going to end with, would be this video. So I want to kind of shut up and kind of let this person go. If there's anything I really need to sort of butt in about, I'll pause it and butt in and talk a little bit. But otherwise, I'm going to just let this sort of play out.
Before we get into our notes and start filling out that handout that you have, we're going to just remind ourselves of some important definitions. Early in this class, we learned about what is rhetoric, and we identified that rhetoric is the art of using language to persuade people's attitudes and influence their behavior. Rhetoric also includes ethos, the author's credibility, pathos, which we call emotional appeals, and logos, which we call logical appeals. So rhetoric, again, in general, is how a person, it can be a speaker delivering a speech, it can be a writer writing an article, it can be really anybody who's needing to send a message, it can be a filmmaker, an artist, all kinds of things. But it's how that person is using language, making specific choices with how they're speaking or what words they're using to convey an idea, and it's all about how they try to manipulate public opinion, or maybe how they're trying to influence the way we behave and make us do things or act on behalf of people or whatever it happens to be. But that is rhetoric, all right? The art of using language to persuade. Then there's analysis. Analysis is taking something complex and then breaking it down into meaningful parts. So it's taking something that's larger and kind of breaking it up into chunks so that you can kind of dig a little bit deeper into the significance of those sections. Analysis, by the way, when you break it down by the roots, ana means back or up, and then lysis refers to the act of cutting. So it literally means cutting up or cutting back or cutting apart something. Rhetorical analysis, therefore, is identifying and breaking down the persuasive strategies used by someone about a specific topic. All right. Moving on, why do I need to know how to write one of these? Well, it's a number of reasons. First off, this is one of the main essay styles that you'll have to write for the AP exam in May, so we need to know it for that. We also need to write one of these bad boys on the SAT test. So 2 of your...
Okay, so this guy's talking about, because again, you use these in high school as it relates to the AP and the SAT test. So he is right about that. You should use these and you should be doing those, but we also do it at this level in college as well. So he's going to be talking a little bit more about, things that might relate to upper level English in high school, but it also applies to freshman English 1101 at college. So kind of keep that in mind in the background.
Major tests you'll be taking your junior year are going to feature a rhetorical analysis prompt. Now, aside from that, and I would argue more importantly, doing a rhetorical analysis helps us understand how other people try to manipulate us through the language that they use. All right, it helps us kind of, the more we practice analyzing other people's form of rhetoric, we are better equipped to kind of understand when people are trying to manipulate us and trying to change our opinion. And again, if we can understand the tricks that they're using, we are better able to decide whether we want to listen to this person, right? There's that whole knowledge is power type concept working in here. And also, if we want to become better writers, if we want to become more persuasive in our own arguments, then doing rhetorical analysis essays kind of forces us to learn to become more persuasive in our own writing and speaking, because what we're doing is we're looking at choices made by other people, and we might read something and if we understand how they're manipulating the audience and we are like, okay, that's actually a pretty powerful way of phrasing something, that might also help us become more persuasive in our own writing. We can maybe emulate those moves as writers. So if you take that green sheet and flip it over, we've got 5 steps to writing a rhetorical analysis essay. So step number one, what you've got to do is you've got to read the text and take some notes. Now, in particular, you want to look at what information are we given about the author or the speaker. Sometimes we're just flat out given information at the beginning of the text. Sometimes the writer might, or the speaker might divulge information in the text. Sometimes you might just have to infer things. You'll have to kind of figure things out based on what the person's saying. But what do you know about the person who is the speaker or the writer?
iExcel is helping 15 million students succeed in math and language arts.
And then what seems to be the purpose of the text? What is this specifically? What is this text trying to make the audience think or make the audience do? All right, and you want to try to narrow that down as specific as possible. And then on a practical level, you have to look at the soapstone information. So on the front side of the sheet, if you flip it back over, you've got the chart for soapstone, and this is the information that you would want to include there. And this is information that you're going to want to memorize. You want to just know the soapstone elements automatically so that you can look for them and include them in your essay. So for S, the speaker, or the author, right? So who is the writer of the words that you are reading? And if it's a speech situation, who is the speaker, all right? And then what kind of ethos does this person have? Why is this person even talking about this topic? Is he or she an expert in the particular field? Do they do this? Are they involved with this particular topic for a living? Is it part of their job? Are they educated on this topic? Again, just basically kind of looking at what does this person, what information about this person do we have that lets us know we can trust his or her opinion? And also look at what does he or she say within the text to kind of establish themselves as trustworthy individuals. And then there is occasion. Why is this person speaking and writing? What has happened or what is happening that requires this person to speak or write in this particular text? So most texts are written in response to a situation or in response to a topic, or sometimes we deliver a speech because we're anticipating something's going to happen, and we need to, again, the audience to think about certain things ahead of time. Then we're going to look at the audience. So A is audience. To whom is this person speaking or writing? Is there a specific audience? Is it one person? Is it a group of people? Is it all of society? Is it all of humanity? But like literally who is sitting in front of the person while they're delivering the speech? Or, again, just the audience in general. To whom is this person speaking these words or writing this text? The purpose, pretty straightforward. Again, specifically, what is this person persuading the audience to think or feel? And then the subject, what is the text about? You would say, this speech is about the topic of blank, right? And then you would try to fill in that blank with maybe a single word or a couple of words. But here we're just in a broad, general sense. What is the subject being explored? And then finally, tone. What specific emotion or emotions describe the author's feelings about the subject? And thankfully, you were provided with a handout of a lot of different tone words categorized by emotion. So you can kind of look through there and look at your options and try to find the best tone word that most specifically matches the words on the page in front of you, or the words that are a part of the speech.
You can find a lot of those tone words if you just sort of do a Google search for tone words, or like adjectives, adverbs, verbs, that type deal. So a lot of this stuff you can kind of look up on Google as well, if he's kind of referring to this sheet that everybody else has but us.
Next, if you flip it back over and we go back to our steps. So step 2, you're going to read the text again, and you might even read it a third time, all right? You're going to read the text multiple times, or you're going to listen to the speech multiple times. And here you're going to take more notes. You're going to either annotate directly on the page, or you're going to, if you're watching a video, you're going to jot it down on a sheet of paper. But here's where you want to be a lot more discerning about what you're noticing in the text. You want to look for appeals to emotion, all right? At what point in the speech or in the text is the speaker trying to reach out and touch the audience's emotions, right? So, and what kind of emotions specifically? What kind of emotions is the speaker trying to make us feel? It might be fear, it might be happiness, it might be nostalgia, it might be guilt or shame. But again, try to look specifically for some of those emotional appeals. There might be words that are repeated. There might be phrases that just have this really heavily emotional charge. But again, see what you can find. Then look for appeals to logic. Underline and circle the author's use of facts or statistics. Those are usually pretty easy to find, but you can also look for cause and effect statements or if-then statements. These are all clues that the author is using appeals to logic. And then in general, you just want to look for what you would consider to be important word choices, maybe some poetic language, powerful imagery, any trick of the language that you can identify that the author or the speaker is using in order to persuade the audience to do what they're trying to get them to do or to think what they're trying to get them to think, all right? So for word choice, or what we call diction, you're looking for words that have a heavy specific connotation. It could be maybe describing something a certain way. Again, you can look for powerful imagery. Poetic language, a lot of times we've got these just strong uses of metaphor or strong uses of personification. But very often, speakers or writers will use, some really memorable poetic language or word choices that we can pull out of that text and say, see how this is important, see this word choice is trying to make me think or feel a certain way. Step 2, continued. When you are annotating this on your second and maybe even your third read, you want to try to identify the most important strategy or strategies that are being used at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. You want to break the text up into 3 parts, okay? And this is so that you can kind of analyze it in chunks. So what seems to be the first important idea explored, and what strategies are used within that? What seems to be the second important idea explored, and again, what are the strategies that you see in the middle? And then always look at the end, look at the last paragraph or the last couple of sentences, and look at how the speaker chooses to end the text. And again, can you identify an important strategy? Now it's time to write your rhetorical analysis essay. So we've graduated to step 3. So for step 3, we're going to take all of our soapstone information, and we're going to identify what are the 3 main strategies we see being used by the author or the speaker, and we're going to put it in paragraph form, all right? And it might look something like this. So in class, we watched the video on Will McAvoy in the TV show Newsroom, and so I went through and I got all of my soapstone information. And
so again, this is a sample essay from this particular speaker. It's not necessarily probably going to be as long as what yours needs to be with 4 to 5 pages, but this will be another example to kind of look at and look at what he's highlighting here in yellow and stuff, because it will be helpful when it comes to drafting and finalizing yours.
Now I'm just going to kind of plug it all into a paragraph. And notice I've got the essay titled. I've come up with an original title. Again, always try to be creative and original with your essay titles. But it goes like this. While participating in a panel discussion about modern day politics, here's my occasion. News anchorman Will McAvoy. All right, so here's my ethos. He's a news anchorman. And here's his name, my speaker. News anchorman Will McAvoy is presented with a difficult question. What makes America the greatest country on earth? So again, here's my occasion. Again, this is what causes him to deliver the speech. Seated to his left, the liberal participant offers a simplistic answer, while on his right, the conservative participant recites his redundant response. McAvoy, on the other hand, sidesteps answering altogether until, at the prodding of the moderator and of his own conscience, he erupts with a vehement and contrarian tirade, arguing that America is not, in fact, the greatest country. All right, so now we've got the audience established here. While reflecting on the glories of America's past, McAvoy uses a sarcastic and scornful tone to emphasize the country's current state of decline. Here's my tone, all right, and I'm kind of hinting at the subject here. Incorporating harsh language choices, McAvoy employs repetition, enumeratio, and juxtaposition to emphasize the irrationality of assuming America's global dominance as a great nation. All right, so there you go. Here is what he's persuading the audience to think, all right? He's emphasizing that it's irrational to assume that we are a great nation. Here are the choices that I'm going to explore, 1, 2, and 3. There you go. I've got all of my soapstone information incorporated into a paragraph, and now I can continue. Okay, moving on. Step 4. Now it's time to write not 1, not 2, but 3 body paragraphs, all right? The body paragraphs are going to follow a set structure.
Again, the body paragraphs here, they're only using 3. You're going to have to use more than 3 body paragraphs to get the 4 to 5 pages. You can use this, again, as a model to sort of show you how to style various body paragraphs. But we're not writing a 5-paragraph essay as this particular person wants you to do, because we need to make 4 to 5 pages with this particular analysis.
So it's a very formulaic essay at the end of the day. The first thing you're going to do is identify a strategy. All right, the topic sentence is going to start with a transition like always, and then it's going to identify a strategy used either at the beginning, middle, or end. Then you have to offer quotes. You have to have quoted textual evidence to illustrate the strategy that you are identifying as being important. After that, you need to relate the strategy and the quote to the purpose of the text. So how does this strategy advance the argument or the persuasive element of this particular text? And then finally, you want to explain how this strategy is supposed to impact the audience, okay? So let's look at some examples. Going to the newsroom speech, here's the first one. So I'm looking at the beginning of the speech. First, McAvoy opens and closes his speech, by repeating a direct refutation of the question's premise. While the other participants are quick to respond with cliché and forgettable responses, McAvoy contradicts the question itself by repeating that America is, quote, not the greatest country. Using simple, direct, contrarian language allows McAvoy's response to stand out among the other participating speakers, emphasizing his position that those who assume America is the greatest country on earth believe in a fantasy. By employing repetition at the end of his speech, McAvoy forces the audience to recognize their own participation in making false assumptions about American society. So I noticed that he starts the speech off by saying it's not the greatest country on the planet, and then at the end of the speech he actually says America is not the greatest country on earth anymore. So there's this repetition. He starts by stating it and then he repeats it again at the end. So even though I'm looking at the beginning and the end, I'm basically saying the first really important strategy that I think is in this speech is repeating this important phrase. Then the second one is where he uses what's called enumeratio, which is a long list. All right, that's from our rhetorical terms glossary. So next, McAvoy enumerates many unflattering facts and statistics about modern-day America to appeal to the audience's sense of logic. So there you go. My next strategy is this appeal to logic, using enumeratio. When addressing the issue of freedom, McAvoy lists Canada has freedom, Japan has freedom, the UK, blah, 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 goes on. This strategy clarifies the fact that freedom alone cannot qualify America as the greatest nation on the planet. Continuing with this strategy, McAvoy's use of enumeratio offers a plethora of statistics, demonstrating America's inferior global status, including performance on core academic subjects and many others. By incorporating a barrage of reasons why America cannot be labeled as, quote, the greatest nation on earth, McAvoy effectively provides many counterexamples to negate the premise of the question. As a result, the audience members are left to question their own perceptions of America's global dominance. So again, notice I've got the strategy, I've got quoted evidence, and then I make an effort to talk about how this strategy advances the purpose of the speech, and then I also always talk about how the audience is meant to respond to it. So
the problem with this is it provides good information, but if you notice, he doesn't have, or this student doesn't have any in-text citation via MLA. So the quotations are strong, but he needs to have those in-text citations and parenthetical citations. So it's going to be interesting to see if he does provide a works cited page, and he needs to, but we need to have these in-text citations as well.
Got one more. Finally, McAvoy closes his speech by using juxtaposition to glorify America's noble past with the current state of decadence. In the final section of the scene, he contrasts positive aspects of American history with deplorable realities of modern American society. For example, McAvoy admonishes, we waged wars on poverty, not poor people, and we aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. These examples not only reflect, I keep doing that, on traditional American ideals, but also positions them alongside current and social and political trends that reflect negatively on the country, while simultaneously highlighting the numerous important achievements of America's past, alongside examples of political squabbling and misguided policies of current society. McAvoy appeals to the audience's sense of nostalgia and tradition in order to emphasize his point that America has fallen significantly in global status. So then we get to our conclusion. So I've goofed this up, but the conclusion slide should say that you are going to briefly restate the purpose of the speech and the strategies. The conclusion is really, really easy. Just again, restate the strategies that are used and restate the purpose of the speech, and that's basically it. So in summary, Will McAvoy effectively blends many rhetorical strategies, including repetition, enumeratio, and juxtaposition, to contradict the assumption that America is the greatest nation on earth. So there we go, repeating the strategies, repeating the purpose, and then again, going to just talk about how the audience should feel at the end of this whole thing. He leaves his audience with a sense of shame that hopefully may become a call to action to rediscover the passion, nobility, and dignity of traditional American politics and society. So I apologize for the mess up. This was supposed to animate, and you should be able to see step 5 text. But again, just briefly restate the strategies and the purpose and talk about how it should leave the audience at the end. Now, common mistakes. All right. When you're doing a rhetorical analysis, don't write about your point of view. Your point of view is irrelevant with a rhetorical analysis. Your job is to analyze the author or the speaker's rhetorical strategies, and that's it. So if you disagree with Will McAvoy and you think that America is in fact the greatest nation on the earth, that doesn't matter. Leave your personal opinion out. Your only job is to analyze, again, the words in the speech or the words on the page. When you're doing your strategies in your body paragraphs, go beyond ethos, pathos, and logos in your thesis statement and sentences. If you think that, if it's a really heavily emotional text, for instance, don't use the word pathos. Identify what specific emotion the author is exploring. Same thing with appeals to logos. Don't just say the author uses logos. Identify, again, what kind of logos. Is it including facts and statistics? Is it making, showing cause and effect relationships? But, again, when you're saying strategies, again, don't just say ethos, pathos, and logos. Try to be much more specific. If you can go to that rhetorical terms packet and identify some things out of that, that can also kind of bump your score a little bit. So the more familiar you are with those strategies, the better. And lastly, in the body paragraphs, always make sure to relate your quotes to the purpose of the text, and make sure that you identify how the words in those quotes are going to impact the audience at the end of the body paragraphs. Purpose and audience has to be addressed in those paragraphs. All right. You might have noticed in my sample essay that I had a bunch of words highlighted, and this is the last thing I'm going to leave you guys with. When you quote text, or when you quote a speaker, very often we want to introduce our quotes with the word says or the word states. So very often we might want to say, well, in the speech, Will McAvoy says, quote, or, in this article, the author states, quote, and then you would give that quote. Try to use what are called strong verbs. So I will provide you with a long list of verbs that you can use instead of says or states. But as you are, again, analyzing the quotes and the strategies used by the speaker, try to use words such as the ones you see down here, as opposed to says.
You can always go to Google and type in a list of strong verbs, and you get a larger list that you would want to use as well. And those would be very helpful when it comes to, essay 3 and essay 4 coming up.
Or states. Says or states, again, that's more high school level writing. As we try to graduate to college level writing, we want to try to use some fancier sounding verbs. So, look up what some of these mean. Try to, again, I'll provide you guys with a list. Try to reference that list and maybe use some of those words, because it's guaranteed to bump that score. So when you do your own rhetorical analysis essays, I'm often going to ask you to highlight your use of strong verbs before turning it in. All right, well, there you go. I have a full-blown rhetorical analysis essay posted with this if you want.
All right, so yeah, that's pretty much what a rhetorical analysis essay is in a nutshell. Clearly, ours is going to be, or yours is going to be a little bit longer. And I say once you decide the text that you're going to do rhetorical analysis on, I would go ahead and, get started with a draft as early as possible, because again, next Thursday is going to be here before you know it. We basically have, if you count today, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have about 11 days to draft and finalize essay 2. I would say I need to see, if you're going to send me rough drafts, I would probably need to see them maybe before 11:59 on Tuesday the 24th. That way to just give me, enough time to sort of look through some of them. I mean, if you try to send it on the 25th, I can't necessarily guarantee I'm going to be able to go through and give you some quality feedback if you wait 24 hours before it's due. And of course, if you try to send something on the 26th when it is due, I definitely probably won't be able to get around to it, because by that time, I'm going to start being in grading mode, because I'm going to try to keep up with these grades. So for folks that turn in or submit work earlier, I'm trying to get those graded. So you kind of will know what your grade is heading into the next week, that type deal. But be wary, be aware that I'm only one person, and I'm teaching, 6 classes that have essays coming in on a regular basis. So I will, if you turn something in, you will guarantee get a grade. I will get to it as quickly as I can. Obviously, you're going to want the feedback on it. I mean, I don't want to just, zoom through these. I want to give you good quality constructive feedback as much as I can, but I do realize, I'm the only person reading these and grading these, so they can get kind of time consuming, especially if I got a lot of them coming in all at once. And if the paper length is a little bit longer than, what's normal. Normal being what was normal with SA1 compared to SA2 now, because my other classes, right, my other 1101 classes, because they're 15 weeks long, they're basically on like week 10 work now. They're getting started with the proposal and the research paper and all that stuff. So that's a different level of writing and stuff that's coming in as well. But just know if you turn something in, you will get a grade. So if you want me to look at a draft, please get something to me by the 24th. But keep in mind, I will answer drafts first come, first serve. I'm still, trying to grade papers as well. So the grading is going to sort of take a little bit of priority at first, but I will look at drafts as long as you get them in before, a 48-hour period would probably be suffice. The earlier, the better. Would be, obviously that would be more of a preference. If you can give me something, let's say on the 19th of March instead of the 25th, if possible. All right, until I guess next week or so, or unless you have any questions, you can always email me, of course. I do offer in-person tutoring. I don't know if anybody lives near or in the Camden area. If you're interested in that, we can set up some times. Monday through Thursday, that will work. Or we can do some virtual tutoring, basically using teams that we're using right here. Again, Monday through Thursday. We can figure out a time that works for both of our schedules, because I have a couple in-person classes Monday through Thursday. They're mainly in the morning hours, so probably after 1 o'clock, 1 to 6 would probably be a good thing to schedule anything, a virtual tutoring session or something of that nature. And that might be also a good time to do in-person tutoring as well. I'm gonna leave it at that. I hope y'all have a good rest of your week. I hope your other classes are going well. Let me know if I can be of any assistance. And until we meet again with another video, have a good one.